All right, Shalom, Yasharal, Shalom, giving all praises, honor, and glory to our power Yahweh, Baha Shomi Hawashah, Baha Shem Rachak, Wadash, double honors to the apostles, the bishops, the elders, the great millstone. Peace and blessings to the hopeful elect of the tabernacles of David, scattered throughout the four corners of the earth, wherever you may be, wherever you may be. Shalom, Yasharal, Shalom. All right, we're in Exodus chapter 21. All right, and I have my split screen going here. I'm using my other device. I didn't know it had this feature, and I want to use it because it's not on my working device, but it's on this broken one, probably that you saw yesterday, the broken one I had on screen. So we're going to get into Exodus chapter 21. It says, these are the and we're reading in the NLT. We don't necessarily need to read in the NLT, but the way that it simplifies it, because those that know, they know anyways. But, for those that may be new, all right, we, to the best of our ability, try to simplify things. And the NLT is a good thing, to go into when you want a more simplified version of, what's written in the KJV. Though you have to understand, where some of these other translations go off, all right? But the NLT can be a great simplifier. So we're going to read in the NLT, Exodus 21:1. These are the regulations, which, if you read this in the KJV, as a matter of fact, because we got it up here, don't we? Let's just use it. All right. In the KJV, it will say judgments. All right. These are the judgments which thou shalt set before them. Okay. So what we're going into is, because we know in the last chapter, we gave those were those particular 10 commandments, but there's more than just 10. Those were like the backbone. All right. Commandments. And then there's many, many other commandments that are given, right? And what we're moving forward into is dealing with some of these situations, personal situations, like marriage situation, all these different types of situations that may come up, and the judgments that are supposed to be taken upon these, all right? And the word there is mashupat, which we probably knew, but if you didn't, mashupat, which means what? Judgment, okay? Look, it even says sentence, decision of judgment, execution of judgment, justice, right, rectitude, attributes of the Most High man. All right, so you get the point there. Okay, so going back up to the top, these are the regulations you must present to Israel. If you buy a Hebrew slave, he may serve for no more than 6 years. Set him free in the 7th year, and he will owe you nothing for his freedom. And before we move on, it's good to read this precept here that's at the top of this chapter. It says, if you buy a Hebrew slave, he may serve for no more than 6 years. Set him free in the 7th year, and he will owe you nothing for his freedom. So if you read this in Deuteronomy chapter 15, verse 12 through 18, it says, if a fellow Hebrew sells himself or herself to be your servant and serves you for 6 years, in the 7th year, you must set that servant free. When you release a male servant, do not send him away empty-handed. All right, which that's not mentioned here in 21, right? So it says you do not send him away empty-handed. Give him a generous farewell gift from your flock, your threshing floor, and your winepress. All right, so your beast, your crops and grains and things of that nature, which would basically go to sustenance, different things that you needed to maybe farm for themselves, also to feed themselves, right? And of your wine press, all right? Because, wine press, you get the same blood of the grapes, right? The wine, all right? Give them some good drink, all right? For the heart, for the, the liver, the body, all right? So it says, give them a generous farewell gift from your flock, your threshing floor, and your wine press. Share with them some of the bounty with which Yahweh, your power, has blessed you. Yeah, because that's the whole purpose that they came to you in the first place. They were in need, and they needed to come up, all right? And through that service that they would do to the other Israelite, they would eventually, at the end of that service, be well off, all right? And then furthermore, the person they served under is supposed to do these things unto that servant, so that to make sure that they're level and and that they're good moving forward. Because there could be the occasion where that person sought to go and hire somebody themselves, all right? So there's different, it's slightly different scenarios, because you can have someone that came to you to be hired as your servant, and then you could be seeking for someone, you go and seek out a servant, right? So it says, remember that you were once slaves in the land of Egypt, and Yahweh your power redeemed you. That is why I'm giving you this command. And also, which is not noted, but it's good, when you kind of, using discernment, because when you learn certain things, you can put these things together, though it doesn't say it. What this is referring to is dealings towards other Israelites. So when it says, remember that you were slaves in Egypt, it's remembering how terrible a time it was, how you served with rigor under the Egyptians. So you don't want to have one of your own brothers or sisters be hired under you and treat them the same way that the Egyptians treated you. So those words are very, very important there, because it's dealing with Israelite versus Israelite. I don't want to say companionship. Basic, because I can't really think of the word I'm looking for, but the way we deal with one another. All right, giving this topic here, which is as a slave. All right, which is not a permanent slave. All right, really is mostly to build that person up. Okay, because at the end of the 6th year, when the 7th year begins, they go free. But there's another scenario to that as we continue reading. So let's get this in. So it says, but suppose your servant says, I will not leave you, because he loves you and your family, and he has done well with you. In that case, take an awl and push it through his earlobe into the door. After that, he will be your servant for life. And do the same for your female servants. You must not consider it a hardship when you release your servants. Yeah, don't be an a-hole. All right, then, dang, this was good. Like what happened to goodness, was it Isaac? No, it was Jacob. All right, where I can't even think of the name of was it his uncle? Laban. The way Laban, twisted things up and kept, jerking him over. All right, jerking him around, doing this, saying this, and then, basically he would just want Jacob to stay around because he saw, the prosperity that Jacob was bringing by just being on his land and his territory and in his household. All right, so you don't want to be that way. So it says, remember that for 6 years they have given you services with double the wages of hired workers, and Yahweh your power will bless you in all you do. Yeah. So be what's the word I'm looking for? Can't think of the word I'm looking for. But let's keep going, because I think you get the point there. Because we're gonna some of these points are gonna come back up anyways. So as we go back to Deuteronomy 21 and 2, if you buy a Hebrew slave, he may serve for no more than 6 years. Set him free in the 7th year, and he will owe you nothing for his freedom. All right, he will owe you nothing for his freedom because he already served this time. All right, for that 6 years. But that's why it was good to read that Deuteronomy, because you're supposed to bestow, certain blessings upon that individual as they leave out. Okay, because they should be now able to go out there into the world on an uplifted manner, because they built up under this other Israelite that they served under. All right, so they leave out with substance. So it says, if he was single when he became your slave, he shall leave single. But if he was married before he became a slave, then his wife must be freed with him. Now, there's 2 scenarios here. All right, so this scripture also is very important as we move forward, because when you continue reading on, it takes 2 different roads given the scenario. All right, and so the first one is going to pop up. So it says, if he was single when he became your slave, he shall leave single. But if he was married before he became a slave, then his wife must be free with him. All right, so it says, if his master gave him a wife while he was a slave. So this is the scenario of him being single when he became the slave to that other Israelite, right? So if his master gave him a wife while he was a slave, and they had sons or daughters, then only the man will be free in the 7th year, but his wife and children will still belong to his master. And you might think, well, why is that though? Aren't they his children? Of course they're his children. But the woman that he lay with was the master's servant. And the children that she bears, though they're that man's children, they belong to the master because the woman belongs to the master. It sounds crazy, but this is the law of the Lord, all right? So if that man came in single and he saw someone that he really wanted to get with that was of the master's household, he would get with that woman. And then if they bore children at the end of the year, the 6th year that is, when it's time for him to go free, and if he actually leaves out free, the woman and the children stay in the master's household, and the man goes out free. All right. So, and it clarifies some of these talking points as we continue moving further. All right. So, just be with me. All right. So it says, verse 5 says, But the slave may declare, I love my master, my wife, and my children. I don't want to go free. So if you love this woman so much, maybe they got a good, real good relationship. The family and the household is doing good. He's come up from his destitute state under this other Israelite man he's serving under. And he's like, you know what? This is a great opportunity for me, and I don't really see a reason why I need to leave. All right, I'm okay. I'm fine with being here. So it says what? If he does this, his master must present him before the Most High. Then his master must take him to the door or doorpost and publicly pierce his ear with an awl. After that, the slave will serve his master for life. Now, we're going to jump back down to the bottom screen here, and we're going to pull up this same verse 6. So it says, then his master shall bring him unto the judges, which the judges are what? The elders, all right, that was set up when we go back to one of the previous chapters. Over thousands, over hundreds, over the 50s, and over 10s, right? So it says, then his master shall bring him unto the judges. He shall also bring him to the door or unto the doorpost. Now, when you look up doorpost, sometimes it'll bring you like the gate, because it could be the gate of the city, could be the gate of, maybe the perimeter of the master's house, or it could be the actual doorpost of the actual door, okay? So there's different, when you go into doorposts, there's different doorposts, all right? But, that's neither here nor there. So it says, then his master shall bring him unto the judges, and he shall also bring him to the door or unto the doorpost. And his master shall bore his ear through with an awl, and he shall serve him forever. Now, this was the decision of the man that didn't want to leave after the 6 years, because he gained a wife and a family, and he's happy. He's doing well now, and his master probably treated him well as also, right? So let's get the word all. All right, and the word there is maratazai. I think it's maratazai or maratazai. I'm not sure. I always get mixed up with that particular character there. The one on the end, I always get mixed up a little bit, and I can't even the one that's not lit up. There you go. I always have trouble with that character. Might have to go and get some little extra study on that one. It always throws me off though, because I think there's an I sound and there's an ah sound, so sometimes I get mixed up with it. So it says all, a boring instrument, all right? And we can pull this up. We guys probably just need to pull all, but it's okay. Let me turn this heat down because it was freezing when I jumped in. So you see, an awl is a simple tool that can be used to bore holes in a variety of materials, including wood, leather, and fabric. Awls are also useful for marking and tracing, and that's basically pretty much what an awl looks like, okay? Where you can just hit the round end, all right, with the hammer or whatever, and boom, thrust it through, make the hole there. My pictures are coming up kind of slow, but you get the point. The ice pick, form of an awl, right? Or it looks like an ice pick, so that's an actual ice pick, I don't think. So you understand what an awl is, right? A boring instrument, all right? So let's go jump back up and get the word bore, right? And the word there is ratazai. So it says to bore, pierce of the ear. All right. And I thought they would actually give us maybe more definition there. But you understand what boring means. All right. As a matter of fact, I don't know if we can get anything out of the word bore. Okay. Yep. See, make a hole in something, especially with a revolving tool. All right. Like a drill will be a revolving tool. All right. When you push the button, you're right. The drill bit starts to spin, and then you zzz, it has a forward motion. Then you click the switch to have a reverse motion. All right. Yeah, so there you go. The hollow part inside of a gun barrel or other two. Yeah, that's a good example too, because in the inside of a gun barrel, you have that spiral motion. So when the bullet comes out, it actually spins, and it pretty much propels the trajectory forward, because there's an explosion that happens that shoots it out, and then that spin, propels it forward, but also, it keeps in that kind of forward straight motion there. All right. I'm not a gun expert, so I'm pretty sure there's much more to it though. So there you go. So we understand the awl and the boring and the reason behind it, which that man didn't want to leave out after his 6 years of servitude, right? So going back up to the top, it says if he does this, his master must present him before the Most High. Then his master, and it says before God, but remember the word God would be Elohim in the Hebrew, which, would be, powers, but also it goes into the word rulers or judges, all right? Excuse me. And so these rulers or judges will be the elders of Israel, all right? So you're not actually thrown off by that either, right? So it says, then his master must take him to the door or doorpost and publicly pierce his ear, right? Publicly pierce his ear with an awl. After that, the slave will serve his master for life, right? And another, which might be minor, it doesn't mention this, just kind of extrapolating. It's publicly done because maybe, somewhere down the line, this man wants to decide that, man, I want to leave. But no, you chose to stay forever, and which is why you got your ear, bored through with the awl. So everyone would know that, no, this man, and he's got the awl in his ear. Yeah, he decided to stay. So, what are you doing? You can't leave. See? You got to keep up your end of the bargain, which your bargain is forever. So it's a very, it's a very, it's a high level decision. I can't think of the word I'm looking for, right? But it's a very important decision that you have to make. All right. So it says, when a man, hold up, my screen is freezing and jumping. Give me a second here. Bear with me. My bottom, hold up, my screen froze. Bear with me. Make sure we're still ticking. Okay, there we go. Yep, we're still ticking too. Come on. Yeah, Satan, man. Okay, here we go. All right, here we go. So Exodus 21:7. So it says, when a man sells his daughter as a slave, she will not be freed at the end of 6 years as the men are, right? So, and there's the KJV if you want to read it. And if a man sell his daughter, okay, yeah, this thing is want to act up. I should hit wait for now because I don't want to have to bring it all back up again. So it says, so it's probably going to keep popping up. It says, and if a man sell his daughter to be a maidservant, she should not go out as the maidservants do. And which, we could pretty much get the maidservant. We don't really have to. All right. The word there is Amma. All right. With, I believe Amma's mother. But, yeah, because Abba is father, Amma is mother. But in this particular sentence or scripture, it says maidservant, female slave, maid, handmaid. Also says what? Concubine. All right. So, if we can leave that on the screen, I guess. Well, we'll go back. Never know. So it says, when a man sells his daughter as a slave, she will not be free at the end of 6 years as the men are. And I'm pretty sure there's a lot of women jumping out the panties because when they read something like this, that's not right. That's not, okay. All right. Bras flying all across the room. All right. Spit flying, Bibles flying open. Okay. What is this? Because they don't like, but what it is, they don't understand the ancient culture. All right. And honestly, all right, in a lower sense, women were also a part of business. All right. Because it clearly, let's read it again. Don't take my word for it. When a man sells his daughter, that's called a business transaction. All right. It's not out of evilness or spite or anything like that. Okay. This is just, and also because a very good example to make you to understand that it's not all about, being wicked or evil or whatever. Because you have, in ancient days, you had kingdoms. So you had this king here, that king there. They're at odds with one another. They've been in several wars in the past. And they want to diminish the hatred between them two. So what would happen? This king would have his daughter go and marry that king's prince. And so that joint marriage of the two kingdoms would bring immediate peace, because you don't want to attack the opposing kingdom where your son or your daughter is living, where they might perish as well in the attack and in the war, all right, of these two warring kingdoms. So yeah, that's a perfect example, all right, and that happened, which of course amongst the Edomites, they still backstab each other. All right. Oh, actually no, I'm thinking of the the Edomites did take over Egypt, the Syrian wars and all that stuff, king of the north, king of the south. So you had that happen there. I'm referring to what is in the books of Daniel, right? The Assyrian wars and so on and so forth, right? So yeah, you had that happen, and those were broken. But you also have it, I've giving you the more better side of things, where this one individual will marry into that other individual's, family or kingdom, however you want to put it, and it brings those two kingdoms together. It brings peace between those two, and then when an enemy comes up, those two warring kingdoms are now allies. They're going to be allied against whatever else, the other kingdom or whatever. All right, so that does bring peace. Okay, not saying it can't be broken, but I'm saying it does bring peace. So going back to this, all right, It's simply almost, take it or leave it. All right. It's like a business transaction. It's really no other way to put it in modern terms, man. All right. Because it clearly says a man selling his daughter. And she could be what? She could be purchased by someone else to be a maidservant, or be purchased by someone else because it was in the definition to be what? A concubine. Or really, it would be a wife, because if she's an Israelite, she's not really a concubine. All right, concubine would be a heathen woman, and a concubine is a lesser wife. She doesn't have all the statuses and privileges of an Israelite woman as a wife. All right, so you get the point there. So it says, when a man sells his daughter as a slave, she will not be free at the end of 6 years as the men are, because there's a difference between men and women. All right, and that's something that modern day women, men too, all right? You got simps out there. Modern day men and women have to understand, all right? Because too many people are brainwashed with equality, man. There's not equality with nations because Israel is above all nations. Then there's no equality with male and female because men are above women, regardless of the nation. That's the order that Lord set up. The Lord set up that men are above women. Okay, so that's any nation, and He's going to bring that order back to all the nations. All right, starting with Israel first. But let's keep going. So verse 8 here says, if she does not satisfy her owner, he must allow her to be bought back again. But he is not allowed to sell her to foreigners, since he is the one who broke the contract. Yeah, if maybe she, look, because if you read the KJV, if she please not her master, who had betrothed her to himself, yeah, betrothed meaning what? They got engaged and eventually became married. So going back to what we mentioned, the word concubine, but really she would be a wife. But you get the point. Who had betrothed her to himself, then shall he let her be redeemed. To sell her unto a strange nation, he shall have no power, seeing he had dealt deceitfully with her. Because maybe it could have been on her. Maybe she's cleaning, but man, the house is, whatever, is still dirty. She's not cleaning properly. All right. She's I don't know. She's not a good mother. Whatever the case may be. All right. Maybe she's bad mouth. Whatever the case may be, you can think of a thousand random things, right? Where, you can, and he's like, man, you know what? I'm fed up with this, all right? And so he wants to send her back to her father. But even though the reason behind why he did that is a justifiable reason, because she's not living up to her standards, he still broke the contract, all right? And so she can't just be sold off somewhere else, all right? She has to go back to her father, if that makes sense to you. If she does not satisfy her owner, he must allow her to be bought back again, but he is not allowed to sell her to foreigners, since he is not the one who broke the contract with her. I'm sorry, since he is the one who broke the contract with her, see? So moving on to verse 9, it says, but if the slave's owner arranges for her to marry his son, all right, if the slave's owner arranges for her to marry his son, he may no longer treat her as a slave, but as a daughter, because maybe he went off to go and buy, seek to purchase, a so-called slave, Israelite slave woman, because he was like, you know what, my son needs a very good wife for himself, and let me see if I can find one. So he found this female of this other household. He's like, yeah, let me get her and bring her back to my son. So he purchased this woman, as a servant, and he was like, son, all right, perfect wife, all right. Just to give you a little scenario there. So, kind of give you a visualization. Excuse me. It says, but if the slave's owner arranges for her to marry his son, he may no longer treat her as a slave, but as a daughter, right? Meaning, because, a maid, you tell a maid to go cook, she got to go cook because she's your maid, all right? Do this, do that. She got to do whatever. Not saying that the daughter doesn't listen to you, but, it's not so much different. But, there's a slight difference between being a daughter and just being a maid servant, because the maid servant is there to actually be just that, a servant. A daughter, still respects, the father, and so on and so forth. And there's certain things that she has to do, the father tells her to do and not to do. All right. And so on and so forth, because he's still, the father, he's over her. All right. There's a slight difference, all right, between being a maid and being a daughter. Okay. If that makes sense to you. So verse 10 says, if a man who has married a slave wife takes another wife for himself, he must not neglect the rights of the first wife to food, clothing, and sexual intimacy. So going back to what we talked about before, maybe he's seeking a female maidservant to actually be his wife, all right, to be someone that he wants to be with, all right. So it says if he has married a slave wife, takes another wife for himself, he must not neglect the rights of the first wife to food, clothing, and sexual intimacy. Because maybe he, when he first met this woman, like, okay, she's cute, I like her, all right. She become quickly stopped being his maid and became his, all right. But then he goes out and he sees another woman and she's just like drop dead gorgeous to him, and he wants her too, and he gets her. And so she looks better. Not doesn't mean that the other one's ugly. Maybe she was ugly, maybe she wasn't. But it doesn't mean she was ugly. Just means she was cute, but this one is way cuter. And so he's paying way more attention. All right, it's kind of like he's catering more to this one than to the first wife. That's the scenario there. And I'm just using beauty for an example, because there could be many other reasons why. Maybe she just treats him better, or whatever the case may be. All right. So for whatever reason, he's feeling her more than his first wife. All right. These are the stipulations here. All right. Or judgments, as it said. All right. So it says he must not neglect the rights of the first wife to food, which would just be evil. All right. To clothing, well, not so much as more as evil, but maybe she was getting good raiments. All right. And maybe she had a bunch of different raiments she can change out into. All right. And then it also says sexual intimacy. Okay. Because that's also your duty as a husband, and vice versa. As a wife, you're supposed to give that man sex. All right. So if he's starting to deprive her of these things because of the second wife he acquired, let's keep reading. If he fails in any of these three obligations, the food, clothing, and sexual intimacy, she may leave as a free woman without making any payment. Why? Because this is the law. It is written. So her pretty sure understanding the law, and she realizing that she's starting to realize that I'm neglected in these things. I'm his first wife and I'm neglected in all of these things. Okay. Then by way of the law, she's allowed to leave. All right. So continuing on, it says cases of personal injury. I guess we'll slide down here, and it just says personal injuries in the KJV. All right. So it says anyone who assaults and kills another person must be put to death. All right. And this is very important. It says he that smiteth a man in the KJV so that he die shall be surely put to death. Because going back to, as we talked about in the last chapter, there's a difference between kill and murder. All right. One can be accidental, which is, we're going to talk about it briefly, and one can be pretty much premeditated. So there's a difference between premeditated death, because that's you killing that person. I'm sorry. Yeah, actually, let me make sure I'm saying it right. All right. As a matter of fact, we're going to get into it anyways, because we're going to pull up scriptures. So we'll get into it. Let's just get the scriptures out. All right. So it says anyone who assaults and kills another, all right, person must be put to death. All right. It says, but if it was simply an accident permitted by the Most High, I will appoint a place of refuge where the slayer can run for safety. All right. Now, we'll jump down here and get the word smiteth as we move forward here, which we should know what smiteth mean, but we'll just get it anyways. To strike, to smite, to hit, to beat, to slay, to kill. All right. So, like it says, anyone who assaults and kills another person must be put to death. Because that's pretty much, premeditated. You were out to get this person and put them to death. But then an accident can happen. All right. So that's the murder. Okay. Where were we? In verse. Okay. Yeah, we read verse 12 and 13. So I want to actually get something real quick, because the verse 12 says anyone who assaults and kills another person must be put to death. Right. So let's jump over here to Leviticus chapter 12. I'm sorry, not chapter 12. 24. And read this. All right. Eye for an eye. Right. And he that killeth any man shall surely be put to death. Okay. As a matter of fact, since it's here, let's see what killeth will say. The word there is nakah. And it says same thing. To smite. I'm sorry, to smite. To strike, smite, hit, beat, slay, kill. Okay. And notice how the word kill is there. All right. In the word. All right. Attack, destroy, conquer, subjugate, ravage. All right. So going back up to this scripture here, it says, and he that killeth any man shall surely be put to death. All right. And that's why in Exodus 20, it says, thou shalt not kill. Okay. Because there's a slight difference between the two. All right. As once again, killing is straightforward. All right. You intended to do this, but a murder, it can happen by accident. And there's the scriptures get into that as we continue reading. So it says, and he that killeth a beast shall make it good beast for beast. And if a man cause a blemish in his neighbor, as he hath done, so shall it be done to him. Breach for breach, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, as he hath caused a blemish in a man, so shall it be done to him again. And he that killeth a beast, he shall restore it, and he that killeth a man, he shall be put to death. You see, that's twice. Ye shall have one manner of law as well for the stranger, as for one of your own country, for I am Yahweh your power. All right, because the stranger would be, an Israelite, another Israelite, all right, coming in, okay, around you, all right, around this group of Israelites. Okay, so it says, and Moses spake to the children of Israel that they should bring forth him that had cursed, out of the camp and stone him with stones. And the children of Israel did as Yahweh commanded Moses. All right. So with that being read, we're going to get one more. Okay. What happened? Well, I went to hit the numbers. All right, there we go. So we want to go to Numbers, see if we can get it here, 35. And we're going to begin at verse 15. It says, these 6 cities shall be a refuge, both for the children of Israel, and for the stranger, and for the sojourner among them, that everyone that killeth any person unawares may flee thither. So this is also in the law, that when this what we the topic right now, when this situation occurs, there are cities that are set up that this person is to flee to, right? Because the family of the deceased person might be angry and want revenge and seek to kill that person, all right, put that person to death. So there were cities that were set up that they would run to. Now, if we read up above, you get the cities, but I guess you can read on your own time to know what the cities are. We just want to get these points here. And there's enough to read already. So it says, and if he smite him with an instrument of iron so that he die, he is a murderer. The murderer shall be put to death. And if he smite him with the throwing, and if he smite him with throwing a stone wherewith he may die, and he die, he is a murderer. The murderer shall surely be put to death. Let me correct myself because it says murderer here. All right. It doesn't say kill. It says murderer here. All right. So murderer. All right. But it does say thou shalt not kill in Exodus 20. All right. But let me correct myself, though. I'm going to keep to what's being said here. All right. So it says he is a murderer and he shall surely be put to death. Right. And it says twice back to back, 16 and 17. It says, or if he smite him with an hand weapon of wood wherewith he may die, and he die, he is a murderer. The murderer shall surely be put to death. The revenger of blood himself shall slay the murderer. When he meeteth him, he shall slay him. But if he thrust him of hatred, or hurl at him by laying of wait that he die, secretly, waiting, to kill someone or whatever, or in enmity, smite him with his hand that he die, he that smote him shall surely be put to death, for he is a murderer. The revenger of blood shall slay the murderer when he meeteth him. All right, and that's once again, like I said, I want to correct myself, all right, because it does say murderer. All right, I just wanted to make sure I was saying the right thing, all right, because it can't get confusing, okay. But what the point that I was making before still stands. There's a difference between you premeditating an attack or one attack happening accidentally, like they're in a quarrel and he accidentally, kills the other person he was fighting. All right. That's an accident. But when he went to this man to fight this man in intention of killing him, right, that's a different story. And this is further expanding on that point because it's talking about also using weapons or lying wait, right, to do this act, right? So I hope you understand that, all right, Lord, will you do, and that you're being edified. So it says, the revenger of blood shall slay the murderer when he meeteth him. But if he thrust him suddenly without enmity, or have cast upon him anything without laying of wait, or with any stone, wherewith a man may die, seeing him not, and cast it upon him that he die, and was not his enemy, neither sought his harm, then the congregation shall judge between the slayer and the revenger of blood according to these judgments. And the congregation shall deliver the slayer out of the hand of the revenger of blood, and the congregation shall restore him to the city of his refuge. See, where he went to flee, because that was what it was set up for, whither he was fled, and he shall abide in it unto the death of the high priest, which was anointed with the holy oil. I'm pretty sure that would be whoever the high priest was at the time. All right. Until he changes hands. Okay. So it says, but if the slayer shall at any time, then now here's a different scenario with the same topic. But if the slayer shall at any time come without the border of the city of his refuge, whither he was fled. Right. So this makes the big difference here. All right. This is the city you're supposed to flee to, and you're here now. But until the high priest is gone, right? So if you leave this city at any time when you're not supposed to, this is the scenario. But if the slayer shall at any time come without the border of the city of his refuge, whither he was fled, and the revenger of blood find him without the borders of the city of his refuge, and the revenger of blood kill the slayer, he should not be guilty of blood, because he should have remained in the city of his refuge until the death of the high priest, because that was what was written in the law, until the death of the current high priest that was anointed with the oil under this event that happened, all right, this whole ordeal. Once that high priest changes hands, you're able to leave that city. So he's not bound to the city forever, but the high priest may be alive for a very long time. Who knows? But until that high priesthood changes hands, you have to stay in this city. So if you caught out of the boundaries of this city where you're supposed to stay at, then you're the guilty party and not the person, all right, who caught up with you. Because it could have been y'all just randomly passing, crossing, maybe one's traveling here, one's traveling there. It's not on them, because you were supposed to stay in the city anyways. And y'all just so happened to cross paths, and whatever came upon you, if that makes sense to you. So it says, so these things shall be for a statute of judgment unto you throughout your generations in all your dwellings. Whoso killeth any person, and if this was set today in today's times, you still have wicked ninjas out there, because he'll think that they can do a murder and get away with it. All right, but the Lord could put the spirit upon it, and the scenario I just gave, he want to travel outside the sanctuary city, right, and get caught up and put to death, because the Spirit of the Lord had it play out that way, because you shouldn't have left the city. All right. But anyways, it says, whoso killeth any person, the murderer shall be put to death by the mouth of witnesses. But one witness shall not testify against any person to cause him to die. All right. Moreover, ye shall take no satisfaction for the life of a murderer, which is guilty of death, but he shall be surely put to death. And ye shall take no satisfaction for him that is fled to the city of his refuge, that he should come again to dwell in the land until the death of the priest. So you see how everything is covered, man. Okay. So ye shall not pollute the land wherein ye are, for blood it defileth the land, and the land cannot be cleansed of the blood that is shed therein, but by the blood of him that shed it. Which, brothers often bring that scripture out dealing with Esau, which, is usable, all right, because he shed a lot of blood in our land and outside of our land. I'm talking about Israelite blood. We don't care about the other nations. But anyways, this says, cannot be cleansed of the blood that is shed therein, but by the blood of him that shed it. Defile not therefore the land which ye shall inhabit, wherein I dwell, for I, Yahweh, dwell among the children of Israel. All right, there you go. So we'll jump back over here. All right, so it says, so Lord would, that was all understandable. So it says, but if Exodus 21 and 13, but if it was simply an accident permitted by the Most High, I will appoint a place of refuge where the slayer can run for safety, which we just talked about all those different things. However, if someone deliberately kills another person, then the slayer must be dragged even from my altar and be put to death. So that's what I was speaking about. There's a difference between an accident in a squabble or whatever. And for a modern day example, you're fighting on the sidewalk. All right, man hit some, hard, maybe, like a knockout, even if it's not a knockout, maybe he just knocked him down and his head fell against, the fire hydrant and the man died. He didn't mean for the man to die. They were just both fighting to win the fight. But the other man died. That was an accident. But a person who came to him, right, and in his mind, like, I'm going to kill this dude, all right, that's the big difference right there. That's why it says deliberately kills another person. The slayer must be dragged even from my altar and be put to death. Anyone, verse 15, anyone who strikes father or mother must be put to death. All right. Straightforward. All right. Kidnappers must be put to death, whether they are caught in possession of their victims or have already sold them as slaves. All right. And this is a beautiful law when you think back to way earlier in Genesis, what his brothers did to him. Okay. Which, that other events. All right. But, the way it happened. All right. Because they parted what? I forget how many pieces of, I believe it was silver or something like that was parted. But yeah, you get the point. All right. Going back to a perfect example like that. All right. So this law is beautiful when you're dealing with examples like that. All right. So it says kidnappers. And I mentioned this before. Not every law that was established based on us coming out of Egypt. Some laws were established based on earlier events that transpired. All right. So it says kidnappers must be put to death, whether they are caught in possession of their victims or have already sold them as slaves. Anyone who dishonors father or mother must be put to death. Also straightforward. All right. And in the KJV, I believe, what verse is that? 17. Oh, we're still in Leviticus. Hold on. I messed up. Okay, yeah. Yep. So I didn't go back. I thought I was back in Deuteronomy. I'm sorry, Exodus 21 in the bottom screen to get the KJV there. And it was, verse 17. So it says what? And he that curseth his father or his mother shall surely be put to death. All right. So you know how you throw up curses on, heathens or wicked Israelites and stuff like that. All right. When you're doing this to your father or mother, you're going off, even if your parents are wicked. All right. Because a lot of us have wicked parents. All right. But they're still your parents. It doesn't mean you don't love them. All right. Just because they're wicked, it's just that, you hope that, it's in their lot to wake up to the truth. Because if not, you see them in the kingdom again. But you get the point. All right. No matter what the scenario is, good parents or bad parents. All right. You're not to curse your father or your mother. All right. You're definitely going off. So it says anyone who dishonors father or mother must be put to death. Now, suppose two men quarrel and one hits the other with a stone or fist, and the injured person does not die, but is confined to bed. All right. So this is similar to the scenario up above, but slightly different. So let's keep reading. It says, if he is later able to walk outside again, even with the crutch, the assailant will not be punished, but must compensate his victim for lost wages, and provide for his full recovery. Similar to, what's an example of? Because you got hospital bills and expenses and things of the nature. Or like when you get workers' comp, all right? You had an accident on a job and the job pretty much is paying you, for your wages, even though you're not actually at work, until you're able to come back and actually earn your wages. All right. Medical bills. All right. They'll pay for certain expenses and things of that nature. All right. Okay. So this is a similar scenario there. All right. Where the person, the individual, all right, has to pay for the other person's, his personal injuries and so on and so forth. Right. Because maybe they have to work and till the ground as a farmer or whatever. If you're bedridden, you can't go out there, and that's an extremely, important, you get the point. You know what I'm trying to say. All right, can't really get my words out today. I think we're level. I think we're level though. Okay, but yeah, if he can't go out there, and work out in the fields because he's bedridden or whatever the case may be, then there's a lot of lost wages, and you have to, cover all those things. You have to cover, what he needs, and all those different expenses there. All right. So if he is later able to walk outside again, even with the crutch, the assailant will not be punished, but must compensate his victim for lost wages and provide for his full recovery. See, that's why I gave the example of workers' comp and medical bills and expenses. See all those things, kind of paint a better picture there. A little will. So verse 20 says, if a man beats his male or female slave with a club, and the slave dies as a result, the owner must be punished. Okay? Because what? It says the slave dies, all right? It's straightforward, all right? Now, there's one thing about you chastising your slave, but another thing when you putting that person to death, because this is still an Israelite, all right? The owner must be punished. Verse 21 says, but if the slave recovers within a day or two, then the owner shall not be punished, since the slave is his property, all right? because it was your servant. You were able to chastise that servant, and the servant was okay, and they live, all right, nothing happened to him, because it talks about later, if there is permanent injuries inflicted, right? But this is the case where maybe they would just beat up a little badly, all right, but they'll be okay, all right, they'll get over it, all right, they'll heal and so on and so forth, and you continue on, all right. The owner's okay because that was his servant, right? The slave is his property. Verse 22 says, now suppose two men are fighting, and in the process they accidentally strike a pregnant woman, so she gives birth prematurely. If no further injury results, the man who struck the woman must pay the amount of compensation the woman's husband demands and the judges approve, which is very important. What it says, and the judges approve. That's the key thing here in that scripture. Because a man could say, in modern day terms, man, I want 100 million for this dog. The judge is like, nah, I think 50,000 will suffice. All right. So you got to go with what the judges say. So, in ancient times, maybe he says, I want 100 pieces of silver. And, the man like, oh, I can't afford it. I'm this and that, just okay. 50 pieces of silver. And that's the judge's decision. That's one of the elders' rules. That's their decision. So that's what's going to go. So it's very important to have these judges set up over matters like this, because otherwise, there'd be no agreement. The man could say 10 pieces of silver, and even though it may be nothing to that other man, he may not want to agree to it. And they're going to just argue and fight, and more death and injury are probably going to come for given that particular scenario or whatever, because it could be many different ways that this could happen, right? But the judges are very important. Also, to point out, if we go back to one of the previous chapters, as we mentioned, where it says, when we went through, I forget what chapter it was, but it says Moses, went back and visited his father Jethro. And Jethro was like, what, this is going, this is going to wither you away slowly, Moses. Take the heavier matters, all right? Things that are very super highly important, all right? When it deals with the Israelites, you take the heavier matters, and the lesser matters, all right, set up, the judges, all right? The men over thousands, hundreds, 50s and 10s, all right? And so what this is showing you is some of these lesser matters that the elders of Israel would have been dealing with. And Moses would deal with the more weightier matters, dealing with the law, or maybe something to come with the Lord, or whatever the case may be, the heavier things, right? But this is showing you some of the lesser matters that the judges or the elders of Israel would have been ruling and judging over, all right? These are some of the cases that they would have been dealing with, all right? So it says, so the man who struck the woman must pay the amount of compensation the woman's husband demands, and the judges approve. And once again, that's the key thing. The judges have to approve, because maybe they be like, yeah, it's a little bit too much, brother. We'll do this. All right, you okay with that? All right, we're okay with that. All right, so bam. So verse 23. It says, but if there is further injury, all right, get into a different scenario, same type of different scenario. If there is further injury, the punishment must match the injury, a life for a life, similar to what we just read in, I believe that was in Numbers. It was either Numbers or Leviticus, but it says a life for a life, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, a hand for a hand, a foot for a foot, a burn for a burn, a wound for a wound, a bruise for a bruise. If a man hits his male or female slave in the eye, and the eye is blinded, he must let the slave go free to compensate for the eye. Because at the end of the day, this would have been still an Israelite. So now you can chastise your servant, but now you're going too far. Because now you've given this servant an injury that's going to be a lifelong, a permanent injury. You put out one of their eyes, you see? Now you're going too far. And if a man knocks out the tooth of his male or female servant, he must let the slave go free to compensate for the tooth. If an ox gores a man or a woman to death, the ox must be stoned, and its flesh may not be eaten. In such a case, however, the owner will not be held liable. And this is very important too, all right? So this is if an ox gores a man or a woman to death, the ox must be stoned, and its flesh may not be eaten, all right? It says, in such a case, however, the owner will not be held liable, because the beast was put to death, right? It says, but suppose the ox had a reputation for goring the owner, and the owner had been informed but failed to keep it under control. If the ox then kills someone, it must be stoned, all right? And the KJV says, but if the ox were wont to punish with his horn in time past. You see why we're reading in NLT, right? And it hath been testified to his owner, and he hath not kept him in, but that he hath killed a man or a woman, the ox shall be stoned, and his owner also shall be put to death, right? So go back to the NLT, okay? This is very important, all right? Because it says, suppose the ox had an reputation of goring. So this happened before, and you didn't put the beast to death. For whatever reason, you didn't put the beast to death, all right? And so you still have not gotten it under control. It's killed this man, that woman, all right? Even children, because I believe children are mentioned as we get further below, right? If the ox then kills someone, it must be stoned, and the owner must also be put to death, all right? However, the dead person's relatives may accept payment to compensate for the loss of life. The owner of the ox may redeem his life by paying whatever is demanded, and I'm pretty sure he will pay. All right, we want this amount, especially if he's got it. We want this amount. He's going to pay, because the only other option is he's supposed to be put to death, because you already knew that your ox killed someone, which you were supposed to put to death, but you didn't. And then you still didn't get the situation under wraps because it happened again. However many times, even if it just happened once more, it happened again. All right. So we're going to deal with you according to the law. And that's also the key thing, according to the law. All right. Which shows you that we don't govern ourselves. We govern ourselves based on the law, statutes, commandments of the Heavenly Father, the way that he gave us to govern ourselves and one another. All right. Not based on what we think. Okay. So it says, but Esau does that very well, all right? It says that in Ch.21, we desire not the knowledge of his ways. So verse 31 says, the same regulation applies if the ox gores a boy. Yeah, here it is right here. If the ox gores a boy or girl, you see? But if the ox gores a slave, either male or female, the animal's owner must pay the slave's owner 30 silver coins, and the ox must be stoned, all right? So you notice how there's always a difference when you're dealing with, the slaves, all right, versus someone who is supposedly free, right? Or who is free, not supposedly, because, around the ancient times, we would actually been free. Like, not like today. We can say we're free, but we're not actually free, right? Scripture don't even say we're free. We're yet to stay in our captivity, but you get the point. Verse 33 says, suppose someone digs or uncovers a pit and fails to cover it, and then an ox or a donkey falls into it. The owner of the pit must pay full compensation to the owner of the animal, but then he gets to keep the dead animal. All right. It says, and that's straightforward. We don't really have to talk about that. If someone's ox injures a neighbor's ox and the injured ox dies, then the two owners must sell the live ox and divide the price equally between them. They must also divide the dead animal. All right. And I'm going to get a couple verses dealing with this. All right. First one, not so as pinpoint as accurate, but we're going to get this one first anyways. But I want to read it, and it's just one scripture. So Deuteronomy 14:21, it says, ye shall not eat of anything that dieth of itself. Thou shalt give it unto the stranger that is in thy gates. Now, this stranger here would be someone of a foreign nation, all right? Because you can't give this to another Israelite. So that's how we know this stranger is not talking about an Israelite. Okay? As a matter of fact, I wonder what the word stranger is for there. I pass it. Yep, unto the stranger. So gar is the word there. So it says, you shall give it unto the stranger that is in thy gates, that he may eat it, or thou mayest sell it unto an alien. All right, meaning also a heathen nation. All right, for thou art an holy people unto Yahweh thy power. Thou shalt not seethe a kid in his mother's milk, which means to boil. Which like you eat lamb, all right, or whatever is a baby, all right. What they call it? Is it a calf? I believe they call it a calf. Okay, so you're not supposed to eat the baby of whatever particular animal, right? I just lost my, okay, we're just looking down below. So yeah. So also, dealing with because on another level, because we talked about Israelites, right? But what if you went and got a heathen just by chance you got a heathen, all right, okay, to be under you as a slave or a servant or whatever, okay? So a heathen is just a heathen, all right? So there's certain things of the law that wouldn't apply to the heathen. Now, certain things will, but they're still heathen. So they're not under the full measure of the law. All right. There's certain ways that you still want to deal with certain matters. In other words, I'm trying to say. Yeah, I just wanted that one. So let's get the other one here. Go to Leviticus 22. We just want verses 8 and 9. It says that which dieth of itself, or is torn with beast, he shall not eat to defile himself therewith. I am Yahweh. They shall therefore keep mine ordinances, lest they bear sin for it, and die therefore if they profane it. I Yahweh do sanctify them. All right. So it says that which dieth of itself, or is torn with beast. Now, this is said directly about the priests, the Levites, right? But I'm pretty sure this is still universal, though it's directed towards the Levites. All right, the priests in particular. I'm pretty sure it's still universal, dealing with all the Israelites. All right, because it mentions what or is torn with beast, and this is the scenario: if someone's ox injures a neighbor's ox, and the injured ox dies. Right, so this beast fights this beast, and that beast dies. Okay, you can't eat it. All right. That's the small point that I wanted to get out from there. All right. In case you didn't understand where I was going with that. So Lord will, you understood that. So it says if then the two owners must sell the live ox, all right, whichever person there had been, whoever live ox it was, they must sell the live ox. And it says what? And divide the price equally between them. They must also divide the dead animal, right? Which if you can't eat the meat, there's nothing you can do with that other than what? Go and take this meat and sell it to some heathens, all right? And make some more coin off of it, all right? Or maybe you just want to, you're so grieved that you just want to bury the half. Or who knows, all right? It's your prerogative, doom, 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 okay? Whatever you want to do with it, all right? So last verse says, but if the ox had a reputation for goring, yet its owner failed to keep it under control, he must pay full compensation, all right? Another scenario with an owner who's not keeping his beast under control. So now this beast has a reputation for killing other people's animals, all right? It says what? He must pay full compensation, a live ox for the dead one. So the party held accountable, has to give the person whose ox was put to death a live one, right? Then it says, he said a live ox for the dead one, but he may keep the dead ox, okay? But the person who's also the victim also gets to keep the dead ox, which once again, you can take that ox and what? Sell it to some heathens, make some more coin, all right? Because the owner who was at fault did not keep the situation under control when he knows this particular beast here has a reputation of getting out of hand. So I hope that makes sense. And that's the end of Exodus chapter 21. Not a very big chapter, but, sometimes getting to the laws, things can get very intricate, which it wasn't super deep. And Lord will, I made it, plain, as possible, as the Spirit will allow, and that you will edify. So, Shalom.